Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please shall all rise now to welcome His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic. Thank you very much. Let's be seated, please. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Oshibajo SAN, GCON, Ariwola, GCON. Let me welcome the representatives of governors that are here. Let me welcome the Group CEO for the NNPC Limited, Mr. Mele Kiari. I welcome the book reviewers, all the very special guests that are here. But let me especially welcome here the two authors of this amazing book. I'd like to welcome David Oluseyi Ige, PhD. I welcome you. And Dakbo Akinoshun, his own PhD is SAN. Let me welcome all of you, members of the National Assembly that are here. Let me welcome all the senior advocates of Nigeria that are here present, all the justices of different jurisdictions that are here, members of the diplomatic corps. Some of our royal fathers are also here. I welcome you. And some individuals that have served this country in different capacities of a book that captures our national economic aspiration. Fittingly, so this book is an idea whose time has come. And somebody once said that an idea whose time has come is stronger than a mighty army. With over 200 trillion cubic proven gas reserves, it is no secret. I welcome all of you, but to formally welcome all of us is a man that understands what he's talking about. He's the CEO of Gas Invest Limited and Gas Hub Limited. 23 years industry experience spanning both the public and private sector. He's worked in Shell, Scotland, Netherlands, and even in Nigeria. And even also in NNPC, where he drove, alongside other people, the effort that resulted in the gas master plan. But when you look at him, he's a gentleman, he's not gaseous. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Oluseyi Ige. I welcome him.
Vice President of the Republic, a very big uncle, Justice of PMJ NNPC launches. Thank you all for honoring our invitation. Presence. Launch this standing. Let me start by acknowledging my childhood friend, both grew up in Hawkeye. Perhaps with artisan that we brought this. Whilst I was waiting, perfect. You know, so I've had this perfect book in my head for a long time. Thankfully, that was very key in ensuring that the content of the book was adapted for relevance to legal practitioners, particularly the young lawyers who will be entering natural gas for the first time. I'm hoping that today we will be able to make enough money from the lunch so I can repay that for 120 naira I've owed him since 1979. I damaged his bicycle when we were young. I rode it downhill and crashed into a pile of iron rods and punctured all the tires. I never bothered to ask him how he explained to his mom what happened to the bicycle. My personal sojourn in natural gas started almost exactly 18 years ago. I commenced employment at the NNPC on the 23rd of April, 2005. I was employed at that time as the General Manager Strategy in the Group Managing Director's office. The Group Managing Director was Engineer Kopoluko. Though I had worked previously as a petroleum engineer in Shell and I had managed oil fields in the North Sea, I had no direct prior experience in natural gas. But within a few days of starting that job, Engineer Kopoluko asked me to attend a meeting at the Ministry of Power. At that time, the federal government was just kicking off the new power plant projects, the NIPP project. It was clear from the meeting that I attended that so much funds had been expended by the government in building those power plants, in the project. But it was also clear at that meeting that gas supply hadn't been properly conceived. Somehow, it seemed that everyone there had assumed that Nigeria, being so endowed with gas, so much gas couldn't be, such that gas really couldn't be an issue for the project. It was just assumed that the gas is there and it will come. I watched the dynamics at that meeting, and I'd never witnessed such a hostile interaction as I saw between the gas people and the power people. Amazingly, 18 years down the road, I still don't think those meetings between gas and power are any friendlier than they were 18 years ago. There was little or no data on gas at that time, and as I attended more of the meetings, I realized that the solutions being proposed for gas were ad hoc and inconsistent with the scale of demand that I could see coming for gas or the scale of investment that would be required. So I went back to the GMD and I told him that we needed a different approach to gas, which was more holistic, one that considered infrastructure holistically, the commercial frameworks, because at that time gas was being sold for 10 cents, and that was clearly not adequate to support investment. I told him we needed to do some things on short-term investments and so on. In fact, I said we needed a complete master plan for gas. He asked me to go ahead and develop one. That mandate kicked off an almost irreversible journey, which completely changed my life and my focus, and has culminated today in this book we're launching. I had a small team with which we pulled together data and built up a plan for gas. There were many policy interventions introduced targeted at short-term supply in the form of domestic obligations, as well as medium, longer-term interventions, including the infrastructure blueprint price and net frameworks, which moved the gas price from 10 cents to the more commercially viable $2.50, $3 we have now. The network code was developed, and many other steps towards not only creating supply for the power sector, but towards creating a fully competitive and liberalized gas sector in Nigeria. That journey continues till date as the gas market continues to evolve and global dynamics and continue to make gas center stage. Whilst in NNPC until date, I've had the privilege of being invited to lecture postgraduate students at the University of Ibadan. I have done this pro bono for the last 10 years, where I lecture the master's and PhD students at the Center for Policy, Energy Economics and Law. In the last 2 years as well, I started to do the same at the Emerald Institute of the University of Port Harcourt. I believe Professor Nwazuzu, the director of Emerald Institute, is here. He's my boss there. I met incredibly intelligent MSc and PhD students looking to go into gas. You know, in all my policy work on master plan at the NNPC and subsequent engagement teaching in the universities, you know, on a pro bono basis, I got the inspiration to write a book. There were a few key drivers for me. As far back as 2005, I saw that gas was going to be big for Nigeria. However, unlike oil, gas is an incredibly more complicated commodity to commercialize. It is multidimensional, requiring a combined understanding of engineering, economics, energy markets, law, and policy. In all my engagements, I felt that most people I'd come in contact with in the industry had a one-dimensional perspective of natural gas. And this indeed underpinned a lot of the hostile engagement between parties. I felt that there was a need to bring all those disciplines together in one book and into the consciousness of the new entrants into the gas sector. This was one of the main motivations for this book. In the context of the complexity, I wanted a book that was very easy to read and enjoyable to read, one that demystified the complexity of gas and could onboard as many people into gas as possible, regardless of their backgrounds. And a key operational requirement in this book was a book that was easy and enjoyable to read. Also, as I worked on the master plan, it was clear that Nigerian gas had many peculiarities, which I knew would impact on policy and investment decision-making. The peculiarities were both natural and structural. The dynamics of the gas sector in Nigeria is completely different from that of Qatar or Saudi Arabia or any other place people tend to compare us with. So whilst there is no shortage of books on natural gas generally, there was a need to localize that knowledge around the Nigerian context. This is probably the first Nigerian-centric gas book to be written as far as we know. My teaching experience has been one of the most rewarding, albeit very stressful, particularly once I did this and then I got some 100 scripts to mark from the University of Port Harcourt. I didn't realize that it was so tedious to mark papers on that. I realized in my class that students learned better when knowledge is situated within the context of the environment. We often had very interesting discussions and perspectives, and I found that as I shared my own Nigerian-specific experience, it appeared that the learning experience for the students was a lot more fulfilling. If we are to build the next generation of gas sector operatives, then we need to make sure that they have more than a superficial knowledge. I therefore wanted to write a book that could relate to their normal everyday life. Over the years, I saw that the impact of an incomplete understanding of gas and the legal frameworks could have significant impact in terms of liability and exposure to company and to country. There are several examples of this. DACPO reached out to me, and we thought it was best to get a gradual introduction to the contracting of gas and provide some introductory education for lawyers who may find themselves involved in some time in the future, either in arbitration over gas or in drafting agreements. Hence, the focus around preparing a book that is relevant to the legal profession. Finally, having spent several years in developing policy and subsequent years as an entrepreneur myself, it is clear to me that gas policy formulation will make or mar this sector. And it was important that policymakers got a robust understanding of gas, the evolution of policy in the sector, the success and the failings of previous policy efforts, and a foresight into the future policy considerations. Hence, a key part of the book related to a review of the past policy interventions in Nigeria, how they have succeeded and how they have failed, and suggestions about what the policy focus ought to be in the future. So the foregoing basically formed the motivation for writing this book. Having clearly understood what needed to be done, the next challenge was writing it. I and possibly DACPO had the book in our heads, but the discipline to put pen on paper was something else. But I personally got the final jolt when under my nose, my mom, who is seated here today and over 70, started and finished writing a book within a few months of starting. At that point, I knew I had no excuse. We had to write this book. The COVID lockdown provided the impetus to do this. And in the end, I thank God that we concluded today. We hope that students, industry professionals, lawyers, Nigerians in general will find the book a useful resource and pray that our little contribution will help to advance Nigeria's gas journey. Thank you very much for being here.
Because it is not always easy to give birth to and raise a Cambridge-trained PhD holder. Mama, where are you? Mama, you know, that round of applause, take it home and enjoy one money. God bless you. Somebody once said that natural gas is here. It is the future. It is the thing that will present the gap between our current high carbon economy and bridge that gap between our zero carbon future that we all desire. We shall be reviewing the book. Because of our time, I'm already appealing to the two book reviewers. I don't know what deal I can make on behalf of the audience. Probably 10 minutes apiece. We have two very distinguished people. Let me first and foremost welcome here Mr. Bello Rabiu, who will be handing over to Mr. Austin Olorunshola. Is a mathematician. He's into statistics, and I'm sure he can do 7 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Chief Justice of Nigeria. Let me welcome you all and also stand on existing protocol for the time. Thank you. This 135-page book titled Understanding Natural Gas, a Nigerian Perspective is co-authored by our two good friends, Dr. David Ige and Dapo Akinsonu, SAN. It started with a dedication to parents, their own parents, and many industry stalwarts who have played a role in jumpstarting the gas sector in Nigeria. The book actually provides a simple, easily readable, and relatively non-technical introduction to natural gas. It also provides a global historical overview of the gas sector and its current setup in Nigeria. It is expected to be a reference guide to our policymakers, legal practitioners, development economists, students, researchers, legislators, and investors. For new players in gas, it is also providing a lot of quick introduction with strong bias towards operation of gas in Nigeria. Chapter 1 provides readers with very interesting history of energy, starting from the early days when sun, wood, and other organic materials were the only source of heat globally, while animals, notably horses, drove small machines and provided transportation for everybody. That was that time, more than 200 years ago. It actually covers the growth of energy demand due to industrial revolution at that time, and the discovery of coal leading to the discovery of oil, and then consequently gas, which actually presents the first company in the US at Peridonia about 200 years ago that traces how poor pipeline infrastructure using wood as the only means of transporting gas from A to B, wood actually became a very big issue in moving gas from the production area to the usage. Until the World War II, where technology actually improved and we started using pipeline to move gas from A to B, it took us about 70 years to achieve that. Again, the book delves into Nigeria's energy evolution, bringing the perspective around the change from coal that we are using in the railway system to diesel, and to the current situation where we are maximizing use of gas for everything, including transportation. We have about 7,000 cars in Nigeria now using gas. The book actually summarized the linkage between automotive industry and oil sector in a very nice paragraph of the book which I quoted. It says, by 1905, the gasoline-powered car had defeated its competitors, the steam and electric car, for automotive locomotion. Rock oil, which was basically gasoline at that time, essentially found new use in automotive fuel. The growth of the automotive industry was phenomenal, and so was the growth of oil at that time. In the USA alone, the registered cars that were using in the US at that time was 8,000 cars in 1900, that's 1900, about 223 years ago. But by 1912, just 12 years after, they had 902,000 cars registered in the US. This changing pace of the society actually moved the entire globe now using about 30 million barrels of oil in actually about 1 billion cars globally. The book provided readers with this perspective that, like in the linkage of the oil with the automotive industry, also the linkage of the construction of power plants to use gas also expanded the use of gas globally. So that actually also shows us how the gas started expanding, and we can see the highest level of demand and prices at various times in the world. I learned from this book that global energy consumption grew from roughly 5 to 12 billion tons of oil equivalent in the 40 years period between 1970 and 2010. But between 2020 and 2040, it's also expected that this demand will actually go up to 17 billion tons of oil equivalent. The book provided facts about the history of oil and gas production in Nigeria, with focus on gas exploration, which commenced with the commissioning of Delta 1 power plant in Delta State, currently Sapele. That was only 72 megawatt power plant that was established in 1966. By 1978, Ugeli power plant capacity grew to about 312 megawatt, and Sapele power plant was also commissioned to bring the total capacity in Nigeria to about 1,332 megawatt. As gas utilization to power actually grew, it also goes to the industry. The first gas utilization in the industries actually started in Aba, and it was actually supplied by Shell around 1968. Chapter 2 of the book attempts to explain in simple and clear terms, the origin and meaning of natural gas. Just let people understand what is natural gas, how is natural gas produced, how is natural gas formed, and sort of that. Again, with very simple explanation to actually clarify what the different types of gas are, like dry gas, wet gas, compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas, and liquefied and the natural gas liquids, as well as condensate. It explains in the dynamics of formation of the natural gas itself, from source rock through to the reservoir rock, to cap rock, and all those things that makes gas available. Chapter 3 of the book is a deep dive into the various uses of gas, which is basically either as fuel or as feedstock. As fuel, it is actually used for cooking, for power generation, and for propulsion of internal combustion engines in different industries. And as feedstock, the gas is actually used to produce fertilizer, methanol, and other petrochemicals, which are essential life-changing situations in the world. It actually tried to actually explain how natural gas can be leveraged for a very wide range of manufacturing processes that can help industrialize any nation. It gives example for Saudi Arabia, Trinidad and Tobago, as well as Qatar, how they use their gas for their own industrial development. The authors advocated the use of natural gas for Nigerian industrialization in view of our huge gas resources. As already explained, we have more than 210 trillion cubic feet of gas as we speak. That's proven, and also about 600 unproven gas reserves in the world. Clearly, we are number 8 or number 9 as we speak globally. So, detailed explanation of the gas value chain from exploration to development, production, processing, transportation, and consumption, which operationally can be segregated into upstream, midstream, and downstream, had been given. So it's very easy for anybody to understand from the book how the industry operates and how you can actually enter and work in the industry. Chapter 4 of the book is dedicated to the midstream segment of the gas value chain, which involves the gas processing, cleaning, liquid extraction, fractionation, as well as liquefaction, which produces LNG, CNG, LPG, and condensate. These are critical and perhaps the most dynamic segment of the gas value chain. dominated by gas sector pure players. A more detailed overview of midstream and gas operation, including production processes and products and uses, were given in that chapter as well. Chapter 5 of the book dwells into the commercial aspect of the gas value chain, starting with the various types of transactions and agreements between players in the industry. Provide various examples of gas agreements, most notably the three most important, being the gas supply and purchase agreement, the gas processing agreement, and also the gas transportation agreement. Where you need to produce the gas, process it, transport it before the user actually can use it. In this book, the concept of gas network code used to govern the operation and access to gas pipeline was introduced and explained. Because gas pipelines are monopoly that is natural. You can't make many different pipelines to supply gas to different places. You need to supply only one pipeline to supply many places, and therefore you need to actually have proper regulation and proper policies that will actually enable people that are using the pipeline to have common usage for them. So we have open access. So fortunately for Nigeria, we have the Nigerian Gas Transportation Network Code, which has been approved for implementation since 2020, being one of the critical envelopes of development of competitive gas market anywhere in the world. Open access to gas transportation network with uniform level playing field under transparent regulatory regime with clear rules of access, computation of tariffs, calculation of penalties are some of the necessary principles to ensure effective management and safe operations of natural monopolies like gas pipelines. With NGTCN, all existing and intending shippers will have equal access to available transportation services in Nigeria. Chapter 6 of the book deals with Nigerian gas fiscal framework, which is also a very long history. It gives historical overview of the gas fiscal regimes, which were largely set of incentives to support development and commercialization of gas in Nigeria, both associated gas and non-associated gas. Most of the incentives were project-specific, issued through various laws, decrees, and non-statutory requirements made by government, such as LNG decree, Chevron Escravos gas project, and many others. Going through this chapter gives the reader a full understanding of the evolution of Nigerian gas fiscal terms, from Petroleum Act of 1959 to ACPA terms, that's Associated Gas Framework Agreement of the 1990s, to the CETA amendment that actually encouraged use of gas in the country, as well as the current Nigerian Petroleum Industry Act that was signed into law in 2021. Understanding the issues and challenges of these multiple gas fiscal terms set the context as for better appreciation of all the changes that was captured in that PIA 2021. I also listed some of the major issues and challenges associated with the past fiscal systems, including the following: that ACPA is actually dedicated for those who are producing oil in Nigeria. So if you are coming as a pure gas player, you don't have that incentive, which basically becomes a disincentive for you if you don't have oil production in the country. It also encourages gold plating because it's actually giving incentive for you to invest more money. Now, if you invest that money without producing the gas or misusing the gas, it means you can still get the incentive without getting the gas into the market. So those issues together, again, the effective government share in that particular business of gas became basically negative because we are using the revenue for oil that is going to go to government to incentivize the production of gas. Still, we don't have much value out of it. So these are the things that made the government to not change and move all these incentives to the PIA that will make sure that it's not just producing the gas, but delivering the gas to market. The foregoing issues, coupled with the lack of regulator for the gas sector, led to the urgent requirement for fiscal reforms. This, among other factors, barred the proposed fiscal changes in the Petroleum Industry Act. Broadly, it presents a new comprehensive strategy to deal with issues in the gas fiscal. So clearly, it has also brought all the history and bars what we actually have now as PIA terms in the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. Chapter 7 of the book actually introduced us to the investment appraisal for gas projects. Again, being a long-term project that requires a lot of money, there is need for both the government itself, the owner of the resources, and the investors to appraise and understand that when they put their money, they will get their money back, and the government also will get maximum value in terms of economic rent from the gas and oil production. The chapter explained the concept of investment appraisals and various techniques used to measure performance and profitability of the gas sector and the projects. It also listed some of these measures to include payback period, discounted payback period, net present value, account rate of return, internal rate of return, and many profitability measures to ensure that when you go into the business before you start, you know what you are getting and you can actually make sure you get it. So the book also introduces readers to the concept of cash flow analysis and the development of economic and financial models to ensure that what you are planning, you can also monitor and see the result at the end of the day. So this easy to read book documents the evolution of Nigerian natural gas industry and provide insight into how this globally accepted cleanest fuel can be used to industrialize the nation and secure our energy future. It is therefore highly recommended as a reference material for policymakers, legislators, legal practitioners, development economics, students, researchers, and investors. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. For a very long time, he was in charge of competitive analysis at NNPC, and his presentation has shown that level of analysis. I'd like to quickly welcome here a fellow and country chairman of the Energy Institute, Austin Olorunshola. I will still continue the 7-minute thing. Amen.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Vice President, Your Excellency, Chief Justice, permit me to please inherit the well-established protocol. Because of time, just quickly move. I'd also like to thank Delo for solid foundation has already. So I'll just take you through the part 3 of essentially 4 key chapters, which shows clearly that although oil and gas actually originate from the same sources, they behave completely differently as soon as they get to the surface, particular realization as well as commercialization. That's the complexity in gas business generally. Part 3 collectively demonstrates how blessed, of course, our country is with natural gas, the evolution of governance arrangement, policy and regulatory frameworks, infrastructure outlay, linkages with power, which of course is the largest taker of domestic gas. It also includes a very deep dive into the PM. Chapter 8 specifically lays out the credentials for gas in Nigeria. Huge reserve base, which we've had today. Position even globally, pretty much high, 9th position. With quite a lot of scope that are actually not even been discovered yet. Almost equally split between associated and non-associated. And generally very great quality in terms of low sulfur content as well as richness in it also. Clearly, that chapter also states the fact that the more promising growth paths, of course, for Nigeria's natural gas are LNG export, as well as for domestic use. And ends up talking about how inappropriately we have applied oil type of thinking to trying to use it also to make success out of gas. That's force fitting. Hasn't particularly worked, and the book proposed quite a lot of solutions to that going forward. Chapter 9 actually deals with everything around the midstream gas infrastructure in Nigeria, including the locations, the dimensions of gas processing plants, gas pipeline networks, domestic LNG infrastructure, as well as CNG plants. We also did a lot of deep dive into the LNG value chain, which is quite good, very useful for small players. Chapter 10 was the one I read quite several times because it paints a very good storyline on the evolution of formal as well as informal policy formulation around gas and how they have been rightly or inappropriately applied to steer the natural gas journey in the country. You recall that before 1980, gas was actually of no value. In fact, it stretched beyond that because I still remember drilling some wells in 1992, and I thought it was successful. It was 40% oil and 60% gas. And people came to commiserate with me in my house as if someone was dead. That just shows how valueless gas was. So the book actually tried to capture and group about 5 key, if you like, era. The first was the era of fiscal incentivization, which was mainly between the 80s and in the 90s. And then between 2000 and 2005 was the era of bold attempts to create the gas market. 10 years after that time, that's from 2005, 2015 was defined as the era of development of gas master plan. Another 5 years thereafter was the era of flare-out and renewed gas policy. And the era which we are right now, 2021 to 2030, is the decade of gas, also guided by a deliberate policy of government with key deliverables around expanding the gas, commercial gas space, broad provisions and implementation, of course, of the PIA, operationalization, of course, of the gas network code, and acceleration of backbone gas pipeline infrastructure, a lot of which NNPC Limited is working on, even as we speak. You want to know why we have also really struggled making gas truly work? Go and read chapter 11. It actually catalogs very incisive and analytical post-implementation review of all prior policies and efforts, identifying the key failure points, but also the learnings, as well as providing key recommendations. I'll put them that way. One of the major ones that we all know was, of course, missing the opportunity presented by the power sector, which is, of course, the most dominant market for natural gas in Nigeria. The book actually chronicles how the very laudable reforms in that power sector were neither integrated nor effectively synchronized with clear lines of sight with gas supply. And at the end of the day, neither the gas sector nor the power sector is really very much alive. The book then went ahead to provide a lot of recommendations of how we can then move forward. The last chapter, which is chapter 12, is actually a deep dive into the PIA, which more visibly extends focus from the upstream operations to the midstream as well as the downstream activity. Provides in detail the administration of the midstream and downstream petroleum sector, as opposed to the previous focus we had in the petroleum market. Very, very oily. You all know that. In fact, companies at that time never called themselves oil and gas companies. They were all oil companies. That's exactly how gas wasn't given any space at all. It also pays very significant attention to natural gas. This being the most evident gap in the petroleum market, which was, like I said, almost exclusively focused on crude oil. Some of the novel offerings, of course, in the PIA include improving institutional as well as the governance frameworks for the management of oil and gas resources, clear segmentation of regulatory responsibilities upstream, midstream, and downstream as a way of strengthening focus and oversight. Actually, for the very first time, there is a very clear definition and delineation of responsibilities, particularly for the gas sector, which with very extensive provisions to cure weaknesses from the past and enable rapid growth. It also introduces a lot of attractive fiscal framework to bring in as much as possible, and very quickly too, investments across the value chains. There's a lot of clarity and better defined roles for the administration again across the value chains, and much more institutionalized management and inclusion of host communities, which we didn't have before. Let me conclude, Excellency. Part 3 of this book actually speaks to how we can create real value from natural gas. For existing players, it certainly helps as much as possible how you can really optimize whatever you have at this point in time. For new and intending investors, the book helps to sharpen front-end planning, to avoid falling into the mistakes of the past, and navigate the residual risks and complexities, because it's always there. And for gas policymakers, it provides the building blocks for key consideration for developing much more robust frameworks going forward. Of course, not the least is consideration for energy transition. Having read this book several times, I sincerely recommend it for all interested in the gas business in Nigeria. Again, sincere congratulations to David and Akpo. Many thanks, and may this book help advance Nigeria's gas sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together one more time for him, ladies and gentlemen. So we have the book review, and the book is so important that we needed to have 2 book reviewers. Very quickly, we'll dive into the goodwill messages. And the time allocated here is quite shorter than the time given to the book reviewers. Let me kick off with a man who is one of Nigeria's finest geologists and crude oil marketer. Currently, he is the group CEO of the NNPC Limited. Please welcome here, Mr. Mele Kolo Kiari.
Thank you very much, Excellency Mr. Vice President. Utmost respect, CJ, Your Lordship. May I stand on all protocol, acknowledging all my professional colleagues and industry captains of industry. No doubt, my brother and my friend, Dr. Ige has, and Kinosu, of course, both of them are friends. I know both of them very personal, very in-depth. And I'm sure your contribution couldn't have come at a better time. This is the moment of gas. Yes, there are a lot of struggles around what do we do, what next, but the reality today is that we need the gas to be put on the table so that we can create the local industries out of it, create power in our country, make money from it from export, and ultimately create prosperity in our country. I think these connections are very, very obvious and understandable. And may I also use this moment to just say one thing. My colleague Bello Rabiu and Yusuf Usman are here. I remember that anytime we have issues with gas, and Bello Rabiu will say, better have the data because Vice President is going to ask for the data. And I always remember this. So we always keep top of it. Pressure in Lagos, is Otorogu working, and so on, so that when he asks, we will have the right answers for him. And I know that BP has the utmost interest in gas development. I can also see the connection between gas and development. Okay, it's very, very obvious, and those connections there. So we're doing everything possible to make it work. Many of the things we are doing today are thoughts from Dr. Ige and his team. and a lot of other professional colleagues that I can see, but most of them from the industry and even outside it. And we're happy that you did the groundwork. We'll keep it running and make sure that at the end of the day, we get to where we should be, which is to realize the decade of gas aspiration by increasing domestic gas consumption and making more money from export. And I'm sure this book will create the perfect material for new entrants and also for the oil entrants by simplifying it in all those big grammar around gas will vanish. I haven't read the book, but I'm confident from what Bello Rabiu said is that it's very simplistic, so all of us will read it so that we can refresh our memories and make sure it works. And we thank you for doing this for our industry. Thank you very much, sir.
He was straight to the point. It would have been longer when he was GMD, but now our CEO is precision. Let's put a house together for him, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Director General of the Oyo State Liaison Office is here representing an engineer, a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, and a man who also understands metering, gas metering. And so if we're talking and Seyi Makinde is here, it is his field. I hope you'll be able to talk like him as I welcome Mr. Wale Ajani.
Good afternoon, His Excellency, the Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, GCON, SAN, and Lord, the Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Kayode Ariwola. Permit me to stand on the existing protocol. His Excellency, Engineer Seyi Makinde ought to have been here himself. I came into Abuja yesterday, and due to, he was even supposed to attend the National Economic Council meeting, but he couldn't even make that meeting this morning because he had to travel out of Abuja again. So he asked me to come and represent him. He said I should congratulate Dr. Ige and Mr. Akinyoshu for a job well done. One thing that is clear here is that having listened to the book reviewer, I've seen clearly that this is the best way to transfer knowledge, most especially for either the old entrant or the new entrant, because the issue of gas, natural gas, is something that even Oyo State, under the able leadership of Engineer Seyi Makinde, we have put so much, and we are currently working with Shell to make sure that this project come to life. And now that we are moving to 2.0 of Omitutu, we believe that this project will come to life before the end of the second administration. On behalf of His Excellency, I also want to say this. I want to believe that this is volume 1. Although you say it's not easy to write a book, but we want you to continue. So we are expecting volume 2, volume 3, till we get to the final volume. I also want to say categorically on behalf of His Excellency that we have LAUTECH in Oyo State, and this book will certainly come down to LAUTECH and we'll be able to impart knowledge. His Excellency is grounded when it comes to the issue of gas. He has been in the oil and gas before, although before it used to be oil, but now it's oil and gas. So, and I know that he's not taking this lightly. And I believe that very soon we would also have more projects around natural gas in Oyo State. I want to congratulate you on behalf of His Excellency once again, and hope that we will see volume 2 maybe in the next 2 years. Thank you, and God bless you.
Mr. Ajani, you said what you have in your state is Omitutun Volume 2. So gas is actually Omitutun in Nigeria now. Let's put our hands together for him, ladies and gentlemen. Very quickly, representing His Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, is the Honorable Commissioner for Energy and Mineral Resources, Engineer Olalere Odushote.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, my Lord, the Chief Justice, may I have your permission to stand on existing protocols? I will be reading a speech on behalf of Mr. Governor, the Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu. It is indeed my pleasure to be invited to this book launch. I have known Dr. David Ige for very many years, and for much of the later part of his career, he was focused on the Nigerian gas story. Indeed, many know him as one of the main drivers of the Nigerian gas master plan. Such was the import of his contribution that it is largely on the back of his work that the Nigerian president in March 2021 declared the decade of gas. The book being launched here today is particularly timely in view of the recent progressive reforms and initiatives at both the state government and the federal government levels focused on promoting increased domestic utilization of natural gas across the country in the short to medium term. There's no gainsaying that Nigeria has significant natural gas reserves. Despite these huge reserves, Nigeria still ranks very low in sub-Saharan Africa in per capita consumption of gas compared to other countries globally. Lagos State plays a pivotal role in the Nigerian economy as the nation's commercial nerve center and remains the focal point of the country's economic activity. Natural gas is an integral enabler to my administration's themes agenda of making Lagos a 21st century economy. And we are fully committed to collaborating with the federal government through the Ministry of Petroleum Resources to transition Lagos to a gas-powered economy by promoting increased domestic utilization of natural gas across the state in the short to medium term. My administration is focused on developments targeted at reducing the carbon footprint of the state towards creating a healthier environment for its continuously increasing populace and towards building a sustainable Lagos. We believe that pivoting Lagos State to a gas-powered economy offers an array of economic and environmental benefits, including cost savings from low-cost domestic fuel, job creation, especially in the new green market, improving the state's air quality, reducing carbon dioxide emissions, reducing the state's dependence on dirty fuels, providing a pathway to a healthier living, and enabling sustainable economic growth. Pursuant to this, my administration, through the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, has developed several strategic policies and plans aimed at fostering investment towards achieving the state's energy targets and ensuring a sustainable energy future that will promote economic growth. These include the Lagos State Electricity Policy, the Integrated Resource Plan, the Strategic Transport Master Plan, and more recently, the Lagos State Gas Policy. Based on this strategic policy thrust of the state government, it is estimated that Lagos State will require about 1.8 BCF per day of gas by 2040, significantly higher than the current estimated supply of about 270 million scf per day. In view of the existing issues with the current gas network, it is expected that as power demand grows, there will be a need to strategically secure reliability of required gas supply to alternative sources such as increasing utilization of virtual pipelines, CNG and LNG, the Nigerian-Morocco gas line as an alternative pipeline route for gas supply into Lagos, and bespoke development and transmission of gas from offshore Lagos gas fields into Lagos. These initiatives are comprehensively documented in the recently developed Lagos State Gas Policy, which includes key strategies towards boosting domestic utilization of natural gas in the state. Let me quickly add that Dr. Ige was instrumental and central to development of the Lagos State Gas Policy. While the challenges associated with the oil and gas industry in Nigeria are significant, natural gas remains a critical enabler for energy transition and development in Lagos and Nigeria as a whole, as we strive to build a profitable and resilient energy future for our residents. This book by Dr. Ige and Mr. Akiosun is long overdue. It ensures that the invaluable contributions that these individuals have made to development of the gas landscape in Nigeria is now available to interested participants in the Nigerian gas space. I strongly believe that the valuable nuggets in this book will serve as a valuable guide to all stakeholders in the gas sector and further drive natural gas penetration across the nation. On this note, I thank you for your attention as I look forward to harnessing the benefits of increased knowledge of the Nigerian gas sector that will no doubt result from the publication of this book. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and our regards and love to His Excellency the Governor. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this point, finally, for the goodwill messages, we go to one of Nigeria's finest jurists and currently the Chief Justice of Nigeria. Please join us. I welcome here the Honorable Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukade Ariwola, GCON.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Osibajo, SAN, GCON, distinguished gentlemen and ladies, the two authors of this book, Dr. Seyi Ige and Akiosun Esquire, SAN, are both my wonderful brothers. Indeed, David and I, in our language, in our dialects, in Okeogun, were supposed to have sucked from the same breast. And of course, the barrister, SAN, had always been at the bar. I got this book this afternoon. Even though I understand it was dropped off in my office in the morning. Understanding natural gas in the perspective of a Nigerian. It's so explanatory, so explicit, it's so nice a book to be read and understood by all and sundry. Natural gas may be strange to many people, but it's going to be another oil that we don't need to be looking around for, using, like the moderator said, looking for geologists or engineers. This book is said to be a compilation of many years of gas sector industry experience of both Seyi and his
bosom friend is indeed an easy to read reference on the fundamentals of natural gas, including, of course, the commercial transactions and the agreements. The book also represents a comprehensive overview of the Nigerian gas sector, its evolution, and of course the policy journey till date. Therefore, it's a must-read for students, academics, investors, lawyers in practice, and of course, policymakers, and anyone looking for a quick and easy introduction to gas. My brother has gone up there to show the whole world that gas is not only available in Lagos and Abeokuta, Port Harcourt, and Warri and Co. You could get it from Iseyin, from Ilero, go to Okeo, Shaki, you have gas there. This book is for us all. Not only those in the gas industry, gas business, or oil business, but for us all. It's so simple to read, and I recommend it for everybody to have a copy today. Pick your copy today. God bless you. Your Excellencies.
The final comment by His Lordship is what I'm standing on. He said, pick a copy today. And that is a judgment from the Supreme Court. So there is no appeal anywhere except ICC. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we will adjust the program slightly. And so we'll bring the second author forward to thank all of you. You know, while I was just looking at him, I got here at an ample time, and I hid somewhere and I was watching him. And he qualifies to be a lawyer. I asked my father once that, what are the qualities of a lawyer? And he held my hand and he said, a lawyer must have communication skills. A lawyer must be creative. A lawyer must have research ability, analytical skills, must have compassion, must have ethics, honesty, integrity, patience, and leadership qualities, and all of them are in this man. Ladies and gentlemen, Dapo Akinshun.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, SAN GCON, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ariwola GCON. As has been done before me, I will stand on existing protocol so that we will save the time and we can get to the meat of the matter. But when the MC was talking about what his father said and the qualities, we got to look around that. Can this all be found in one man? That my father must have been a very tough man, but thank God you survived that period. But my job is very easy. It's just to thank those who have come and those who have supported this journey. And for me, this has been an interesting ride. But as Sheyi said, we grew up together. Then, several years ago, nobody knew where God was taking us to or which direction the wind will blow. They said 20 children do not play together for 20 years. Or so they say. But somehow, our paths seemed to cross again later in life. We went to the same secondary school, University of Lagos, and along the line. But that journey was quite interesting because she has fantastic memory. Some of the things he remembered about what my father said or what my mother did, I just wondered that this man, how can you remember all these things? But he is a very fantastic person. But the writing of this book, I may have pushed Sheyi a bit, but the history of the book actually begins with the Vice President, His Excellency. Several years ago, when he taught me in university, I went back to see him when he had just moved to his house in Antony Village. This must have been about 93, 94, about early 90s. And he said to me that, well, now you're a lawyer. We need to look into the future of Nigeria. You need to go into gas law. I said, gas law? Where in heaven is this man getting this kind of ideas from? Gas law. I mean, even people in the industry are telling you up till 2000s, it was not popular. They said, well, you need to look at gas law. I said, gas law. I said, okay. I hear, you hear your teacher, I say, okay, I hear you. But he has said his own, and I went on my jolly way. I didn't think much about it again until we came together to form Simmons Cooper. And he said, hey, that book on gas, that area of gas we were talking about. I said, Prof, you haven't forgotten this matter. I've forgotten this matter. But incidentally, about that time, she became the ED Gas and Power. And I heard old boys were doing a reception for one of our old boys, one Dr. David Ige. I said, Dr. Ige sounds familiar, but I know Sheyi Ige. Can it be the same person? This doctor. So, I went to that reunion just to see this Dr. Ige. I said, Sheyi, you are the Dr. Ige. Look, okay. You see, I have this professor in my office who has been telling me we must do gas. And now that you are in gas, you must show us the way to get to this gas. David, I'm going to sit with you. I'm going to learn this gas. He said, well, there's one course that they are doing in Ghana. There's some that they're doing some training that I think Yinka Ayola Daniels, whereas Ni Ayola Daniels had dragged Chi to go and do a training course. I think Ni is also here. And that was my first experience in learning anything about gas. But how do you find material on gas? How do you learn gas? It became a challenge. I had to go Rocky Minerals Mountain Foundation in America. I had to go looking for materials all over the world, but nothing in Nigeria. I said, and I have a passion for young lawyers. I do a lot of work with young lawyers. So he told me one day, he said, well, there's a lot of business for lawyers in gas. I said, but how are lawyers going to get this business in gas if we don't even know what it's about? We see a lot. He said, there are tons of agreements. I said, where are the agreements? Where can we see them? He said, no, there is gas transportation, gas storage. But all those things were strange to me. Then I realized that we have to find a way to make this known to the younger generation. How will this be taught? If there's business in it, so I followed Sheyi into gas aggregation company. We started doing all the draft agreements for them, all their template agreements, and said, we will get into this gas business. But I found that doing business alone, without other people having knowledge, is still not good enough for you. Because you need a lawyer on one side and a lawyer on the other side. And if nobody knows what you're doing, then there will not be enough business to go around. Like they say, chop alone, dies alone. And I always believe that in dying, I need a few people to go down. I'm sure some lawyers here will thank God for my life, for the different businesses we've created for them. But today, I'm not here to tell that story. Of course, one man who is also here today has been very pivotal in my growth and my trajectory in the legal business, and that's Mr. Benga Oyebode. I went to him when I graduated looking for a job. I went to him looking for a job to be employed in his law firm. He never employed me, thankfully, but he taught me how to fish. He showed me a few things, and people used to say, what have you done? Why does Mr. Oyebode like you so much? That I don't know, that they call him an Ijebu Ekiti. But how come he's showing you some things I don't know? I say, well, It must be the favor of God. And it's that favor, I'm sure, that we have with you that has brought you here. One woman, I'm sure Former can tell you the joys and travails of having to wait for Sheyi. I remember a time I had to pursue Sheyi around the world because I wanted a meeting with his minister then. I went from Nigeria to London to Vienna and all over the world. And I just wondered how Ufoma used to manage in those days. I'm sure Lolade will tell the story of how she come and call me in my study and say, "You are going again. This book you are writing, you will finish it one day." But thankfully the book has been finished and you're all here today to join us even as we begin this knowledge transfer. It is part one. As His Excellency from Oyo State has said, who will write part two will be a different matter entirely. But for what we've done, we thank God. And for those of you who are here, we just want to say thank you for your love, thank you for your support, thank you for your encouragement, but above all, thank you for that which you will do as you obey His Lordship's order. Cohorts.
Thank you very much. It has taken decades, and the money has now been paid over the bicycle that was spoiled. This is the time to raise the money. And the man to do the job is the chairman, Alukano Yebode. But more importantly, he's one of Nigeria's most highly rated lawyers with experience in business and law. His law firm has over 70 lawyers with offices in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. But why is he doing this part of the program today? It's because he's a specialist in project financing. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gbenga Oyebode.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, my Lord, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, I'm particularly proud this afternoon to be here. And I will put a few markers on the ground just to ground and put some context to today. First, and I've had the benefit of reading the book. And when you see the book, it doesn't look like a lawyer's book in the sense of the size of it. And I think it's important to say that. Typically when lawyers write books, there are 500 pages, 600 pages. But they also tend to, half of the book, by the way, the guidelines, the gazette, the law, they just make sure that they've included it in the book so that it looks like a scholarly piece of work. One thing that, and I think we should just agree that his name is Sheyi. One thing that Sheyi and Dako have done, when you see the book, at the end of it, actually, they've included the guidelines and the policy and the law, except that it's a QR code, so you have to scan it to go to it. So they haven't done the typical thing, but the contents of the book, that's exactly why I would recommend it. Because it's a primer. It's a primer that includes everything that students, people interested in the subject matter, people who want to understand what gas, not necessarily the law, but the Nigerian perspectives, the Nigerian imperatives, what they are. So on that basis alone, and I'm not repeating the book reviewers, I would recommend it. Because I think that even though we say it a lot, the importance of gas to our economy, to our country, people still think that we're an oil zone and we don't pay enough attention to the importance of gas in our country. So, what's important this afternoon is to celebrate the two authors for a job well done, celebrate them for actually writing a book that's easy to read, easy to digest, one that I am sure not just law students, but lawyers, but not just even lawyers, people who are interested in the subject matter will find useful. My role this afternoon to be a chief launcher, but I'm going to try and do it a bit differently. First, time is fast spent, and I know some of you have been sitting here for the last couple of hours from 3 o'clock. Secondly, and more importantly, I'm standing between you and the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who, as you know, his oratorical skills are second to none. So I'm not even going to try to deprive you of the opportunity of listening to him. Almost 40 years ago, I had to debate him, and people who went to university and to Gobi College with him would know that if you try to debate him, you constantly lost that that exercise. So I'm not going to stand between you and listening to the Vice President of the Federal Republic. All of us, I understand, have a book order form. Also, we've been told that the cover price is 25,000 naira for the book. I also don't want to put people on the spot. I will mention names, but please don't feel the need to come up to the microphone. I think the spot that I want to put you on is your conscience, so that you write the pledge form, as opposed to standing up and telling us what you would like to pledge. But before I do that, my co-launcher is Chief Tunde Afolabi of Amni Petroleum. Mr. Wale Olafison, who is here representing him. Tunde is a man of many parts. I suspect that he didn't send Tunde empty-handed. I'd like him to come up very quickly, just a few words, and then we will go.
Thank you, sir. I don't normally like to stand on existing protocol. If you permit me, I'd like to sit on one. I've been sitting. I'm here, and my job is very simple, just 1 minute. I'm representing the chairmanship of Family International, who happens to be a very good friend of Dr. Ige. And I've traveled far and wide with the two of them on this gas journey. And I've been wondering, I've been waiting to see one day I'll be able to turn off the gas right in my house. I've listened to what everybody has said about this book, and I think it's a contribution to knowledge, to the gas industry, and to future of our dear country. Because gas is power, gas is energy, and energy is life. If you want to contribute to future of Nigeria, there's no better way to do it. So I want to particularly thank the two authors for doing justice to the industry that we've all been waiting for. I grew up as a petroleum engineer just thinking all we need is oil, and we have always drilled for oil. We find gas and we think, like Mr. Olonishola said, it's a waste, it's a nuisance. If Nigeria continues to look for gas today, I'm sure we can quadruple the current reserve number. The gas we have today that we are carrying are just accidental numbers. We found them in the course of looking for oil. So I want to thank the two authors for what they've done, and I also want to defer back to my senior launcher. I'm just representing a co-launcher, but I've been told, and I have a guide on 10 books, 10 copies for the sum of 10 million naira. And there will be more after that. I will go to universities that both Dr. Ege and Chief Afolabi support, and they know themselves when it comes. They're always on the Senate of one university or the other, so they know that. So we're going to take 10 away today with a check of 10 million. I will come back and take more for this university that Chief Afolabi supports. I thank you all. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So you see, the confidence in Tunde Afolabi was not misplaced. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and I'm just going to mention a couple of names, but really just to let people know that first we recognize that they're in the room today, but secondly, we would like them, their relationships with the two authors are significant, and we would like them to do the needful. First, there's a community of senior advocates of Nigeria in the room. I think it's important to recognize them. Those of us that don't have silk recognize that people that have silk, we need to treat them differently. So if the senior advocates in the room, and I have a long list of their names, Ayu Mustafa, Abiodun Owonikoko, there are a lot of senior advocates in the room. I just would like the senior advocates to support the brilliant effort that's culminated in this book. Past President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Olumide Akpata, Mr. Tunde Fowler, past Chair of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Senator-elect Ede Dafinone, Mr. Demola Adeyemi Bero, CEO of First Hydrocarbon, Dr. Dakuku Peterside, Dr. Sam Akinlui, Hajia Bola Shagaya, I understand that Engineer Gwenga Komolafe has a representative in the room. Thank you. Mr. Stanley Jegede. I'm not going to, all the speakers that have gone before me, I don't think I need to recognize them, especially for purposes of their indicating what they will do to support the book. But I know that first and foremost that they're in the room today is an important testament to the support for the authors, but maybe more importantly, the support that they have for gas policy, for the importance of gas for our country. On my part, my support for the book, particularly my support for the law, for education, I commit 2 copies to all Nigerian faculties of law, such that we will make sure that we propagate not just the law, but the importance of gas to our country. That is my commitment in support of the authors and the subject matter. On that note, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so I understand that you need to complete the top part of the form, and please leave it with the ushers who are going to walk around the room, and they will come back to you with copies of the book. There are enough copies this evening that you can take away. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for being here. On that note, we do have a launch, but I will wait for the Vice President of the Federal Republic
for his speech. Thereafter, we'll come back to launch the book and take the photographs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to us. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm being told that they would like us to do the unveiling first before the Vice President comes. For those of you that haven't seen the book, this is it. We will. Can we have Bioye? So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Olafison, please. My distinct honor and pleasure to request that the Vice President of the Federal Republic, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, please join us on the stage to launch the book. The authors, and I dare say, beside every successful author, is a partner who pushed consistently to make sure that the book was completed. So I'd like Mrs. Akin-Oshun, Mrs. Ige to please join us. Oh, okay.
Thank you very much, my Lord Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Kayode Ariwoola. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I was not meant to do this particular thing. It was handed to me by Mr. Gbenga Oyebode, but I'm happy that he did not hand over the business of paying the money to me. So I'm happy to do this. It is my very special pleasure and privilege to unveil this book, Understanding Natural Gas, a Nigerian Perspective, authored by Dr. David Oluseyi and Mr. Dapo Akin-Oshun, SAN, for the benefit of everyone who is interested in gas and all of us who will become interested in gas, and to the glory of the Almighty God.
And so, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency the Vice President will be speaking to us. Your Excellency, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, GCON, SAN. We'll quickly go back to our seats so that we can have a very organized room for him to speak to. Thank you very much. Let's quickly settle down, please. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. My Lord, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Honorable Justice Olukayode Ariwola, GCON, and my lords and ladies of the Court of Appeal present today, President of the National Industrial Court, the Honorable Justice Benedict Kanyip, and other the lordships and ladyships of the high courts present, Chairman, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, Professor Bolaji Owasanye, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Your Excellencies, the representatives of the governors present, Your Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, senior public and private sector oil and gas operators present, the authors, Dr. David Ige and Mr. Dapo Akinshun, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and especially the wives of the authors, Mrs. Ifoma Ige and Mrs. Lolade Akinshun. We also thank Dr. Ige's mom, Mrs. Hannah Ige, for her catalytic role in ensuring that this book came out as quickly as it finally did. The book reviewers, Mr. Bello Rabiu and Mr. Austin Olorunshola, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start by congratulating the authors, Dr. David Ige and Mr. Dapo Akinshun, on the publication and presentation of this major contribution to the existing knowledge in oil and gas law, especially gas. I also want to say that I think the book speaks very eloquently to the quality of thoughts that's abundant across Nigeria. And this is an important point to make, especially because of the frequent criticism that there is a paucity of homegrown research and local knowledge production about the issues that affect our own country at different levels. Well, I believe that part of what we must continue to do, and which is particularly exciting to see, is that connection between expert knowledge, policy making, and implementation. And this, I think, would strengthen our publishing architecture and knowledge market. Congratulations again, gentlemen, and thank you very much for your service in this regard. In recent months, natural gas has taken center stage in global politics, geopolitics, especially with the war in Ukraine going on. And what it has done, I think, is that it has served as a poignant reminder to us all of the complex web of energy security concerns that nations and regions now face. As gas prices skyrocketed, countries were forced to confront the vulnerabilities of their own energy supply strategies, giving rise to urgent calls here and there for reevaluation and diversification. The European Commission and the EU generally had proposed plans to reduce their region's dependence on Russian gas by at least 2/3 by 2030. The US also supported the diversification efforts of its allies, as well as its own. I mean, the US has also reduced very considerably its own reliance on importation of gas, in fact, of oil, generally with the shale oil. And they supported their allies by making additional exports of LNG to Europe. And they've signed recently deals with countries to develop new energy infrastructure and accelerated the development of renewable energy technologies also. Even Japan, an island with few domestic energy resources, has increased its import of LNG from other countries, such as the US and Australia, so that it does not depend on any single source. It's also invested in the construction of floating offshore wind farms, as well as promoting the use of solar. So the landscape of the global energy market is drastically being redrawn. The key question, of course, for us is, how does Nigeria respond? How do we position ourselves from the vantage point of a nation with abundant energy resources, working assiduously to diversify its energy resources, develop domestic resources, enhance energy efficiency, and strengthen our infrastructure? Our nation, like others around the world, finds itself suddenly in a situation where we must navigate this challenging transition wisely and with our economic future in clear perspective. So beyond the present risks of price volatility and geopolitical tensions, the reality of climate change and the increasing urgency for cleaner energy sources are also becoming apparent. For us here in this part of the world, increased temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, more frequent extreme weather events are all having serious consequences for our ecosystems, for agriculture, for water resources, and of course for human beings across our country, and especially the entire Sahel region. So the push to phase out fossil fuels quickly and discourage new investments in related projects is ramping up. And we must take these calls to action seriously, not just for the sake of our environment, but also for our economy and for our people. It's important that we must emphasize that while climate change is an existential threat, our own energy poverty and our development is also a major threat. And so we must find a way of balancing both. Now, I think that this will involve a faithful implementation of our energy transition plan, which, as some of us will know, involves the implementation of our decade of gas proposals. But we must also assure our compatriots in the Paris agreements and other agreements that the use of gas as a transition fuel will not significantly derail our commitment to carbon negative growth. Nigeria's energy transition plan attempts to chart a pathway forward because we see solar and renewable energy as the bedrock of that plan. And the plan is to develop about 250 gigawatts of solar power by 2060, which is when we intend to be net zero. The plan also outlines our decarbonization strategies in the area of power, oil and gas, and transportation, etc. But it also seeks to mitigate against the possible long-term job losses in oil and gas, in the oil and gas sector in particular, because this is an industry that has dominated our economy for decades. And if we're going to transition out of fossil fuels, we must take into account the fact that there will be long-term job losses. It recommends the role of gas as a transition fuel to balance the large influxes of solar power on our grid. It's also cheaper and a relatively clean option for base load power for industry, especially as we expect and watch the cost of solar batteries plunge. We've had to explain to several of our compatriots in the Paris Agreement, and by this I refer to the wealthier countries of the world, that no country has yet been known to develop its industry solely on renewable energy, and that the call for us to do so solely on renewable energy is unreasonable. So they must take into account the fact that we, as a gas-rich country, require gas not just for industry, but also to even be able to effectively use solar power, especially on our grid. There are also practical ways, of course, that gas helps. Propane will bridge the gap, for instance, before the full use of renewables. And this is practical. Propane is, as we know, LPG. And for those of us who have been saying we need to have a change from deforestation caused by the use of firewood and all the dangers, not just to the climate, but to families who use firewood in the rural areas. And that we need to have a clean alternative. LPG at least offers that alternative. It's not the cleanest, but at least it is so much better than firewood and other fossil fuel options. So that is also important for us, that we're able to use LPG as a replacement for firewood. And that answers a lot of the questions around deforestation that we have. There are also, of course, many practical uses of gas for us. And we believe that we must continue to pursue the use of fossil fuels, especially in this transition phase. So the road ahead is both challenging and full of promise. And we must embrace the opportunity to harness our vast natural gas resources responsibly and judiciously, while simultaneously charting a path towards a cleaner and greener future. And we have the potential to become a global leader, not just in gas production, but also in the clean use of gas and in renewable energy as we go into the future. Already there's a lot of talk about hydrogen, green hydrogen in particular, which of course you require natural gas to produce. And there are huge investments that people are already making all over the world in hydrogen. So we ourselves as a nation ought to be thinking in terms of these greener gases. I believe that investments in hydrogen is something we should take seriously. I'm sure that the group CEO of NNPC-CL will take that into account as we plan for the future. So let me again commend the authors of this book, Understanding Natural Gas, a Nigerian Perspective. This is an important book. And as has been pointed out, it's one of the few technical texts that has a strong policy and legal perspective and is also simple to read. Well done indeed. Thank you all very much for listening.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We appreciate you. Very quickly, Your Excellency is still standing, so while we're standing, the national anthem to close. We appreciate you, Your Excellency. Please, the event manager is here. For all the books, Elijah Aliko Dangote, via his representative, is giving 5 million naira. You can give your donations. You just saw the event manager there. And then the table over here, The authors will be sitting down after the exit of His Excellency the Vice President to sign copies purchased. And some of the people who have made their other forms, we can bring it and then we can begin to reflect it. Elijah Liko Dangote, 5 million naira.
Book signing by the author, please.
And so as soon as they are back from seeing of His Excellency the Vice President, the authors will be signing the books purchased. The authors will be signing the books on behalf of everybody involved in this event. Thank you very much. God bless you.